Peace among worlds. This is the second session of Energy Innovator Secrets. And today we have our esteemed guest, Nick Hill, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a minute. The topic of today is Innovate with Impact. Nick Hill on creating MVPs that serve customers first. So here, in general, in the series, I'm trying to, I'm at least attempting to find and uncover the blueprint to successful innovation in the energy space and beyond. Nick has had some touch points in the energy space, although it's not his main focus, but the human-centered design approach that he's going to tell us about will absolutely apply in this industry and beyond. And basically, what I'm trying to figure out here is, uncovering this blueprint to innovation, as I said, and I want to do this by giving innovators that, create innovations as part of their career, as part of their, life's calling, a platform, and tell us all about, teach us, and present to us about their innovative products, processes, or services, or methodologies in this case. And so today we're going to start again with a short presentation, or we're going to, Nick let me know that he's going to basically riff. He doesn't have any slides or anything, but that's completely fine. Experts reveal themselves in improvisation, as I always say. And after this presentation, I'll basically start peppering with some questions. And anybody in the audience, feel free to join in via the chat, via the QA feature, and I will then present the questions to Nick so he has a chance to give us a thoughtful response. My name is Lovis. I'm the founder and managing director of Ghost Founder LLC, which is an engineering company that does hands-on innovation in the energy space in Texas. And today our guest is Nick Hill, and he will teach us about how to innovate with impact. And his weapon of choice, so to say, is the human-centered design approach. And he has learned and applied this methodology throughout his career. He's got a decade of experience. And among other places, he has successfully applied this at companies like Johnson Controls. And Nick now is an entrepreneur with a passion for harnessing emerging technologies. So he likes to be on the cutting edge, and he likes to use human-centric design to tackle global challenges. So these are words that sound amazing. Nick, please feel free to add to them. Take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us about what inspires you, and introduce yourself. And then after that, feel free to take it away and start riffing on human-centered design in general.
Well, that sounds great. Thanks, Lovis. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I'm not traditionally from the energy sector, but as you said, this is about broader innovation. And I think human-centered design is a great framework for approaching innovation, regardless of sector. And so my hope today is to give your audience, your innovators, some food for thought. It's one approach, but it's one that's really worked for me in my career across a number of different disciplines, including product innovation. So a little bit about me. After college, I served in the Marine Corps as an intelligence officer. My work primarily focused on strategic intelligence, advising senior leaders on long-term strategies. And then after the military, I moved up to Seattle, and I mostly worked as a program manager and a strategy advisor in global risk management and security. So I've worked in both private and public sectors, but was continually drawn to emerging technology, how technology can be leveraged as a force multiplier, particularly in the security industry. And so I like to think of myself as a technologist and a creator, but also happen to be a risk practitioner. So I decided that I wanted to be a full-time builder. So I got an MBA. And after I graduated, I joined Johnson Controls as a product strategy lead, and mostly working in new product innovation. I've worked in a broad range of products, including integrated security, wildfire detection, commercial fire systems, and facility compliance. But throughout my experience, I've been really fortunate to see positive impact because of a focus on human experience. So what I hope to show you is how I've combined my military experience with yours as a practitioner to provide some unique insights into what is human-centered design, what is the human experience with products. So with that, I'm just going to jump in. If anyone has questions about what is human-centered design, I'm all ears. So What is human-centered design? Well, it's a way to design products that puts people first. I think that it's really important to approach how we understand the customer, how they use the product, their needs, their behaviors, and their life situations. And I like to call this the customer's flow. How do they flow through life? Like, can we take a holistic approach to our customer and understand what is their overall experience? What excites them? What do they loathe? What inspires them? How do they communicate with their teams? And how do they work professionally? So I call that their flow. And so really human-centered design is about, let's capture the essence of our customer. What is their flow? And how will they be approaching our product? What is the context, the human context for product adoption? One thing that I think we want to differentiate between here, for those that have some experience in methodologies of design, what's the difference between human-centered design and user-centered design? They're very similar. They both focus on the human experience with a product. User-centered design focuses on what is the user experience within the product. And so oftentimes the user becomes a component of the system. Human-centered design instead focuses more holistically on the human experience with the product and how that product fits in with their life and their existing systems within work. So just an important differentiator there. So broadly, human-centered design, it really is practice in 4 phases. The first one is clarity, or to clarify the solution. And so what I want to highlight there is we want to switch our perspective from technology-centered design, which is the most common approach for innovators, to people-centered design or human-centered design. So what does that mean? Technology-centered design is, I have this technology and these features that I'm going to provide to people. And how do I make sure that they use this new technology and these features? But instead, we want to immerse ourselves into the customer experience, have empathy, and then think about what is the best way to apply this technology or these features to the customer. The second phase is innovate. What I'll say there is take a systems point of view, understanding that the customer experience is within a system, it's within a context, and there are often a lot of parts that affect one another within that system. And so understanding where your product or your innovation fits within a broader system of tools, system of data, system of technology, and how easy is it for the customer to adopt your product within that broader system of process, workflow, and experience. And then we then want to ideate. I think this is important and probably at the core of what human-centered design seeks to do, and that's to get at the root of the problem or the motivation of the customer. When we talk to customers, most often we're going to get what I call explicit pain points. It's like the very obvious pain point, right? One example would be, I was working in Johnson Controls, and one of the products that we worked on was physical security integration. And we got a lot of feedback from customers about, I would really like to have access to this information. It's really hard for me to access this information in an efficient way. So a lot of it was about access to information, but that wasn't the true pain point. That wasn't the root of the problem. What we wanted to get at is what I call latent pain points. One, either the customer doesn't actually understand or see, or is actually at the root of the pain point. So what they really want in this example is not just access to information. They need information to make better decisions. And the speed at which they can access information affects the quality and timing of the decision. So the pain point isn't access to information. It's feeling like where they're making slow decisions or poor decisions within a crisis or within a security incident. And so what we then focused on is how do we make it more seamless to access information, but with the end goal of helping the customer make decisions within the context of their work. The last phase I'll highlight is the validate. That's pretty straightforward, right? But we want to continually test and refine products based on the customer's experience. And I can I can share more about ways that we've done that. So that's human-centered design. That was the short and dirty version. Certainly, I haven't shared anything that you can't find online, but I love this approach, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Nick, if you find something that you can't find online, then let me know.
That's fair.
The internet is the most accurate encyclopedia of all human knowledge. So, so we got a question here, which is coincidentally also on top of my list. So, where did you find the passion, and what kind of brought you into human-centered design in the first place?
Yeah. So when I first started working at Johnson Controls, my first role on a product team, was with this security product. And I had a senior product manager tell me that I was really great at human-centered design. And I had no idea that that was a thing. I never heard the term before. I was instantly hooked, though, because human centricity felt very intuitive to me. I'm not an engineer. My education is in political science, and my background is in military intelligence. And so, I love studying people and organizations, particularly customers. And so I felt strongly that I could make the most impact if I continue to focus on helping the individual person, because, society is a collective of individuals. And my experience as a practitioner was that the products that I were using never really quite fit with my lifestyle or what I was trying to achieve at work. Like, there was a lot of bloat. There's a lot of features that I just kind of got in the way. And I felt like if I could just sit down with the product teams and show them how I'm actually using the product, not like what features I'm using or why I'm choosing not to do this, but what is the context for when I log in and I use your software, or I make the decision to switch from one energy solution to another.
Yeah.
Where am I at in my life when I make that decision? I just felt like that was so powerful. And so since then, yeah, I've been really focused on human-centered design.
Yeah, I mean, with your background and the education that you've enjoyed or put yourself through, however you see it, I think you make a great product manager, if you want to put that in the category. Because I mean, very much that role is supposed to be the interlink between the market and the tech, right? And of course, there's engineers that have the ability to build solutions with empathy, but especially in like large complex projects, it's often not really their job, right? So it's really good to have, in the security context, right? You have a vast amount of experience behind yourself, so you can clearly empathize more easily with the users because you've been there, done that, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, clearly, I guess you found the need to apply this methodology probably already in your own experience working in security, I would assume. And then, but what would you say, like being in a large organization like Johnson Controls, like what would you say is the hardest part of creating a successful product, or even making a meaningful incremental change to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the hardest part about creating a successful product is product market fit. And I know that that's said often, but it is really hard. And there are startups that have raised millions of dollars and have been around for years and still don't have product market fit, but they have a great idea or they have a fantastic technology innovation. But how to get customers to adopt it at scale, it's really, really hard. I think second to that would be understanding how to build an MVP that is as lean as possible and still test and validates product market fit. Because even within a big organization where the expectation is we've got all the money in the world, we've got all the resources, we've got the partnerships and the connections and the willpower to deliver innovation, there's still businesses and there's still a budget and there's still limitations to that. And so being really intentional and smart about what is the smallest product? What is the cheapest product, the simplest way to validate the most uncertainty with a product? I think that's really challenging, because as soon as we discover an innovation or a solution, it's really easy to think, okay, how am I going to take this to market, and how do I make it the best it can be? But that's not the first step. That's what we want to build towards. The first step is, okay, what aspect of this product or innovation will customers find the most useful? How do I validate that piece? And then the second piece is, what do I think is super, super cool, but I have no idea if customers will use it? Okay. Test that. It hurts, but test it. Yeah. An example of this, just to kind of give an example from Johnson Controls. So I mentioned I was working on a security product, and when I joined that team, it was a pretty large team and very ambitious to apply innovations in integrated systems, AI, machine learning, among other things. And the challenge was the team hadn't yet decided how to productize the innovations. They talked to a lot of customers, like I said, about their pain points, but bringing it all together and bringing it to market as one simple solution is really challenging, because there's so much opportunity. It's like, where do we start? What's that first bite of the elephant, right? And so what I did is I said, well, let's take a look at a human-centered approach. How does the customer use this accumulation of solutions today that we're looking to innovate? And so I found a framework for decision-making, because I realized that was the latent pain. I want to make better decisions. And so we leveraged a military framework from aerial combat called the OODA loop, and it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And I was like, that's how humans make decisions. That's how I decide, what to cook for dinner. That's how I decide, what to do when there's a crisis. I first have to observe data. I have to understand how that data fits into a broader context, and then make decisions. And so once we realize that this is exactly what our customer does every day, they just might not describe it this way, but we showed them this framework and we asked them, does this describe your everyday life? And they're like, yes, that's me. You understand me. Build a solution that optimizes my OODA loop. And once we did that, and we built the simplest product focused on connecting a decision-making framework to the product, that's when we had success.
So that's awesome. So how do you spell OODA loop? Is it?
Yeah, it's an acronym. So OODA, observe, decide, act.
Oh, and that's the loop, obviously. Okay, cool. I'll Google that in more detail later, because I feel like you can apply this really agnostically, right? Like it comes from the military, but it works for everything. That was a really cool, tangible example. But do you have one where something didn't go as planned, and maybe some valuable lessons came out of that?
Sure.
Shed some light on the project where everything went south and how you were able to fix it.
So I joined a product team to help them reorient their strategy around connected devices. And this was in our Johnson Controls fire domain. And so what we had in the market was we could connect sprinkler systems in a customer's commercial building. And those fire systems can send data to the cloud, and we can monitor the health of a fire system in real time. Super cool product. The ability to drive near real-time insights into the health of a system, right? To avoid critical downtime. Fire systems keep assets safe. And so you don't really know a sprinkler system is broken until you really need it. And that's why we inspect it a lot. But what if we can remove some of the costs of frequent inspections by having real-time monitoring of a passive system? Customers love the idea. They love the idea, and no one would buy it. Not no one, but we faced an issue of having to convince the customer to buy it. And this was really challenging because all the stakeholders agreed that this was a critical innovation, that they were going to save time and money. We were going to optimize our service division, right, by having data ahead of time so that our technicians were prepared to fix the systems efficiently. But it presented a pretty steep cost, and it was a capital expenditure for the customer. And so that was a barrier to entry. And so this is really critical to human-centered design. It's not just about designing the product itself to be centered around the human experience and the customer, but how you bring it to market, how you price it, how you deliver it has to also fit with the customer's business needs and what they are willing to do. And so we went back to the drawing board and we changed our pricing strategy from a CapEx to an OpEx model, meaning rather than asking the customer to buy the whole system up front, we found creative ways using JCI capital, amortizing the cost of the equipment, moving towards more of a subscription model to help the customer spread the costs over the length of their contracts. And once we did that and represented to the customer, our sales pipeline shifted overnight.
Okay, so the solution was great. There was just yet another obstacle that had to be identified and overcome, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how that connects to human-centered design, right, is that holistic approach. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I would encourage our audience to do is, as you're thinking about your innovation and adoption of the innovation, spend some time understanding the customer persona, because the user, there's really three customer personas to consider in my mind. There's the user, right? So that's the person who uses the product every day or who is most impacted by the product. There's the buyer, that's pretty straightforward. And then there's the influencer, right? So it could be a government entity, it could be an adjacent department, right? So who has influence over the company's decision or the customer's decision to buy? The most important persona is the buyer. And the truth is that the user is very rarely also the buyer. So we're optimizing a product to the user, but we also have to focus the value proposition to the buyer and meet the buyer where they are and how they can accommodate your product within their business. So food for thought there, and how we also approach user personas with human-centered design.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the B2B space, I guess, broadly speaking. I mean, if you're in consumer products, I guess the user is often the person paying for it. But if you're selling to businesses, and in your case, I mean, you had some examples with sprinkler systems and stuff like that. The buyer is an operator of a building who might not even be the one inhabiting the building, right? So there can be many layers of disconnect, and you could absolutely accidentally design for the wrong persona, so to say. So that makes sense. So my understanding of human-centered design is evolving as we speak. So that's cool. Yeah, so when you and I got on our first call to kind of get to know each other a little bit, we talked about sustainability broadly, and that it's somewhat of a buzzword, but of course that they're innovative products that, we all feel need to see the light of day. But just because it's like the right thing to do, people don't buy them, right? So how can you use, I guess, human-centered design to ensure that innovative products that are sustainable then also get a chance to positively impact human lives?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I think it's critical that we all do our part to save our planet. My wife's a marine biologist and she works in conservation every day. And so I hear about it every night at the dinner table, how, we've really screwed over our planet, and we need to find solutions today. But more importantly, we need to drive mass adoption as soon as possible, right? And so it's unfortunate that this important mission and the altruism that comes with that, right, that doesn't really permeate the business conscience like it should.
Right. Well, it does, but not until you have to spend money, right? Often.
Well, that's what I say. All the stakeholders, right? This kind of goes back to the sprinkler example, but with much more gravity, right? Is everybody can agree this is important. And if you talk to companies, they will tell you right out of the gate, that they want to go green. They want it to be corporate. They want corporate social responsibility, but businesses have a mind of their own. And at the end of the day, the buyer, the one that actually has to pull the trigger on making that switch, it's costly, right? So I think there's two considerations. The first is understanding that at the end of the day, the buyer does not care about sustainability. Sorry.
No, no worries.
Apologies for that. So what I'm saying is, right, the buyer doesn't care about sustainability, and we don't have to put a face to the buyer. That's not fair, because it's never one person, right? It's the business. And the buyer is only looking for solutions that help them do one of a few things, right? Either make more money, save the business time, or help them sustain their competitive advantage. And so that doesn't mean that we have to compromise on innovation to make, right, our systems more sustainable, to conserve our planet, but we have to find a way to meet the customer where they're at, meet them halfway. How can we drive adoption? By focusing on those ROI metrics, right? I think the second thing that I wanted to highlight is it's very much related, but it's about switching costs. And what I'll say about switching costs is that, you know, humans are, I like to say, irrationally rational, meaning humans are incredibly predictive and consistent in a really irrational way, meaning we don't always act in our own best interests. And I think that's because humans crave familiarity and will do anything to avoid discomfort, and change is uncomfortable. Change presents risk, right? And so it's like, well, I do the same thing every single day, and even though it's not optimal to what my desired objective or output is, I just keep doing it because it's what I've known. So when we talk about innovation, you'll hear often that you have to deliver a 10x experience. And that's because you have to present a solution that is 10 times better than the current solution in use to get a customer to switch. It's that hard. It's that hard to move a human to accept change. And when we're talking about clean energy, we're talking about very large change. We're talking about system level changes. And so you have to be able to present a business case that is 10x strong. It's not just, hey, make this switch because it's better for the planet. I wish that was the 10x rationale that it should be, but it's not. So I think there's continues to be some work that can be done there. And I think human-centered design can be a great framework for continuing to do the research, the product development, and those go-to-market strategies to drive adoption.
And in that, I gathered from your LinkedIn profile that you're a proponent of conscious capitalism. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah. Yes.
But so it's a fine line that you need to navigate between purpose and profit. Do you have any guidelines on how you do that?
Yeah, I think conscious capitalism has to start at the foundation of a company. I think it's really difficult for companies that are extremely mature, that are traded on the stock market, for them to decide overnight, you know what, we're going to become conscious capitalists.
Yeah,
there's
the
a really
OS is already written differently, right? Like it's very hard.
Right. And the truth is regardless of a personal belief system, you know, it's commonly said in MBA school, but also it's just a known reality, right? That CEO's primary objective is to increase the value of the shareholders. Yeah. That's it, right? And so how do we just accept that reality and then showcase to companies how sustainability is good for business? Yeah. So I'm a believer in conscious capitalism as a foundational piece of company culture. Companies that are founded today, they need to commit to conscious capitalism. You need to build sustainability and doing what's right from the beginning, and be willing to make sacrifices to stay true to that first principle. But if we're working with partners and customers, that are already in the market and they already have business systems in place, I think that it requires a different approach. And I think that different approach is to accept that they want to do the right thing, right? But getting them there is going to require a little more practicality at times.
Yeah. There always has to be room for practicality, and it's often not a one-step solution, right? It might take you many steps, but giving people the benefit of the doubt, like it being directionally on that path is better than never starting, right?
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, but so technology is evolving incredibly fast, right? How do you future-proof an innovative product, right? So it's so challenging to get it out there. So once you have it, once you have people buying it, businesses buying it, how do you make it so that it stays away from obsolescence as long as possible?
So that you're thinking about that defensibility of the innovation.
Yeah, or I mean, ask another way, how can you keep your customers happy and like satisfied as long as possible?
Yeah, I think that customer loyalty, I think, comes from two things that are at the core of human-centered design, right? The first is trust, a deep trust between the customer and ourselves that are providing the product or solution. And that trust is built at the beginning of product design. I like to kind of say, active listening is such an underrated skill, but it's something that we can hone. And, in the intelligence community, we often heard it said that you don't ask people for information, make them feel heard, and they'll insist on confiding with you their secrets. So it's about building relationships, right? It's about making the customer feel heard. And if we really take that holistic approach and we really focus on listening and being present with the customer, we build their trust, right? Another thing you often hear is nothing of importance is built in the office. Get out of the office, be with your customers, eat with your customers, make them feel like you are there for them and you will go out of your way to make them successful. I have much more confidence in buying a product from a partner like that than an outside competitor that maybe has a better product or has more experience in my industry, but I don't know them. I think that goes a long way. And I think the second piece to that is customer success. And what I'll encourage our listeners is, if your innovation is your first product, customer success product is your second product. Like, instead of thinking about, okay, I have this product in the market, how do I invest resources, time, and money into making that product better? Take a pause. You have a product, you have your first customers. Your second product is customer success, because those first customers are your most important customers. And so if the customer feels like not only are you invested in their best interest and you have a relationship with them, but that you're also investing in making sure that how they use that product is fully optimized, I think that will go a long way in maintaining a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree to that. So my experience doing really pretty much anything, you as a founder, you try to throw your best first offering out there, right? Your first MVP, and as soon as it has to be good enough to hook somebody, and then ideally you find a way to communicate with them immediately, because if you can build this trust that you were talking about, they will usually guide you to what you really need to build, right? So it's almost, I mean, I don't want to say decoy because there's no deception in it, but it's like you need to put your best foot forward, fully knowing that that's not going to be the final solution. You're really just fishing for somebody to tell you which way to walk, basically. Yeah, so that strongly resonates. I would completely agree. But so say you're way in the beginning of this process, right? So I mean, you've shared with me that you're also working on a Web3 sort of based project, and you don't have to share any details about it, but just because I know that you're pretty much in the beginning of this journey, how do you find the first people that you might, I mean, I guess, how do you even identify your target market to begin with so that you even get an idea of who to sit down with? And then I guess, how do you get to the sit down in the first place, right? So, because sometimes when you're in front of a blank page, it's hard to conjure up that image. So how would you go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I've been working on the side, building my own startup that's in a Web3 space, providing solutions for the creator economy.
Mhm.
And that's been a really exciting journey, but it's been really challenging because I am not, from the creative spaces. I have a passion for supporting creators, and I think that there's really awesome opportunities to leverage technology to make society better and to deliver value to consumers in the creator economy. And so the hardest part of that has been trying to keep the right perspective, because I've got this technology solution. I have figured out a model that I think doesn't exist in the market today, and it's really exciting, but no one's heard of it and no one's doing it, right? So the first question is, well, am I really like that smart? Am I the first one to think of this? Or have I just not talked to enough people and they're like, yeah, we tried that, it doesn't work. Or, right, maybe we've tried that, but we went after the wrong market. And so the advice that was given to me was, okay, and I think you mentioned this before in the summary for today's talk, right? Which is fall deeper in love with your customer, not the solution. It's impossible for us as creators and innovators to start with a problem first and then find a solution. It's just not, that's not human nature. We get excited about an idea. We get excited about a technology breakthrough or a novel process. And then we get stuck where we start shopping that product around to try to find a market. But my recommendation is instead have a hypothesis. It's okay to have an educated guess about who you think this will be most valuable for. And that was my case. I thought, okay, there's a certain type of creator who I think would benefit the most from this product. So I'm going to put a framework around the product, right? Be able to explain it, be able to explain why it's valuable, and then go talk to the customer. Where we need to shift the perspective, where I had to shift my perspective, is to say, okay, now that I've talked to my target market, go build the product they actually want. Mm-hmm. And I've had to pivot my startup at least a half dozen times as I continue to talk to customers and learn what they actually want. And it's been a beautiful journey. The product that I have today barely looks anything like what I thought was this brilliant idea, but I'm even more excited about the opportunity because I know that I'm learning what my customer really wants, and I can still apply the innovation that I started with to help the customer, right? To be of service. And that's the most important thing.
Is there a solution visible anywhere? Is it live? Do you want to plug it or?
Oh, sure, I can do that. Yeah, so it's called Fanseed. You can go to our webpage. We have a landing page, fanseed.io. But I will tell you what's on there is outdated because we've pivoted so many times. So that's another advice is wait till you really know what you want to build before putting a website out there. But yeah, so Fanseed is a platform that really seeks to help creators, influencers, and small business owners build an authentic online community that financially supports them, not just today, but in the future. So it's really a fintech company that helps creators bring their fans onto an authentic, exclusive page where they can raise money for their dream project. So that's what I've been building on the side, and there's no product yet, but I'm happy to say that I finally have determined what that MVP should be, and we're currently building the design for it so that I can then share that with all of you and with creators here in the US at first, and make sure that I validated that product before I really build it. So I'm trying to follow my own advice here.
Yeah,
it's been a process.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, you basically answered a question that I would have asked you: is what advice would you give others looking to invent or innovate? And so this is it, right? Try to get crystal clear and then build.
Let
What
me,
would you add to that?
yeah, I would add, I think we talked about this in preparation for today. And the thing that struck me most was be courageous and be bold. But there are big problems in the world that need big, audacious solutions. And human-centered design it's not about compromising. I know it feels that way. It's about, oh, well, you're saying I have this innovation, but I should ignore that and go talk to my customer. It's not about compromising. It's about knowing where to start and reducing the uncertainty of that early product adoption. But, you know, Henry Ford is quoted as saying, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? And so oftentimes customers don't know what they need until they're shown it. And there's truth to that. The important thing is to validate the most uncertain aspects of the innovation and be agile and fast about it. Go talk to the customers about the thing that you think they want. And you know, rejection, fear of rejection is a very core human motivation. I experience that every day. And we just have to find a way to move past that, because you never know what a customer might say. They may never have thought of it that way. And when we talk about pain points, right, this is what's brilliant about human-centered design. It's not about asking a customer, what's your pain today? What problem are you experiencing? And then solving for that problem. It's about hearing what they have to say about their pain, but then helping them see what's really the opportunity, right, with the solution. And there's other methodologies to get to that. But yeah, don't compromise, be bold, right? And don't be afraid to tell customers about what you really want to build, because you never know what they might say.
Right. What so when you have these conversations, because it sounds like you have those a lot, like what do you use to communicate your, I guess, the current best version that you're trying to gather information on? Do you just have like a one-pager outline, or do you go with some slides, or you just have, is it literally just a conversation flow, or what do you do?
Yeah, right now it's discovery interviews. And I try not to, you know, lead
Right.
the customer.
Test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I try to start as general as possible, but focused on, you know, asking creators, how do you engage with your fan base today? How do you access money? What challenges are there in fundraising? How do you build a sense of community with your fan base or with your customers? Really trying to gauge interests and what's working, right? And there have been creators that say like they have mastered a system and they feel like what they have is really working, and that's useful insights as well. So I try to take a more holistic approach, let them lead me to what they want to talk about, but have some structure to it as well, to get the validation or the insights I need.
And how many data points would you consider valid? Like, are you talking to 3 or 30 or 300, or what's the?
I mean, it's like general advice or for Fanseed specifically?
Yeah, either, whichever one.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's some debate about this. I think academically, right? What is considered statistically significant? How many data points do you need to have validation?
Yeah.
I would say that it really depends on the product and the market that you're going after, right? If you are able to niche down as much as possible what the target market is, you can move forward with less data points. It's about quality over quantity, right? So let's say that I've talked to 50 creators across a range of creative expression, right? Everything from music to comic books, right? Maybe I've got a mixed bag of reactions to the product, but out of the 5 comic book authors, all 5 of them love my idea. Okay, I think that's validation.
Yeah.
So it's about how do you parse the data and how do you look for that target market? Okay, now if comic books is where I want to start, then let's reset the conversation and really dig into how would, you know, graphic novelists or comic book, you know, writers use my product, as an example.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you can use these exploratory interviews both to find your niche and then reset and go deeper into your niche as well. I mean, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good advice. Hey Nick, I think I'd like to give you the opportunity to say some closing words, and I thank you so much for taking the time for being here and teaching me and the audience about human-centered design. I think I learned a lot, so thank you for that. Any famous last words?
I guess just a humble, shameless plug. I am, currently on a short career pause. My son's about to be 4 months, and so it's been great spending quality time with my son. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And in the meantime, I've been doing some consulting work, but also looking for the next opportunity, the next project. So I would love to talk with anyone in our audience, anyone listening. If you'd love to just have a chat about human-centered design, about product strategy, I'd love to meet, have a virtual coffee, and hear what inspires you and how I might be able to be of service. There's so much great opportunity. We look at emerging technology, like we talked about Web3, but also AI, integrated systems, data, so much opportunity out there. And I just would be thrilled to work with you all to think about how we can help companies, help leaders. I say, help them make big bets and win big for their customers and for the planet. So that's what I'm excited to move into next. And if you've got a project that you think I might be a good fit for, or you just want to chat, I'm here. Let's do it.